Welcome. I'm Reverend Michael.
And I'm Ollie.
And you are tuned in to Sacred Ground Community Church and Sangha. This is our Easter Sunday service, and we welcome you. For those of you who are new to us, we are an interfaith group, a melding of Christianity, Buddhism, and earth-centered spirituality. We've been doing this in various forms since 2009, and we begin with an invitation into mindfulness. I'm going to invite the bell to sound, and then Ollie will offer us a centering prayer.
Yeah, I think we'll say that today we are actually in, not at our house where we've been doing this. We are in Youngstown, Ohio this morning, where Michael is from, and we are actually in his niece's she shack. So if you look around, I'm looking around the back of us, and it looks a little different than where we normally are. Yeah. But she generously offered her space for us to be to do the service today. So
yeah. And I'll just, before I do the invite the bell too, and we'll try to say this a couple more times. Those of you who are attending on Zoom, if you'd like for us to be able to see you, you can send us a little note in the comment, and we'll promote you to panelist. That doesn't mean you have to speak or anything, but we would be able to see you then.
And you, and you could see everybody else that's participating.
And you'd be able to see others who are participating. But you're welcome to just listen in as an attendee as well. So you can let us know if you'd like to do that. And hopefully, we're used to having two cameras in two different rooms, so be patient with us here on Easter Sunday morning. So I'll invite the bell to sound, and the bell is an invitation to presence, an invitation to be not in our thoughts about later in the day, not in our worries about yesterday, but in this moment. So enjoy the sound of the bell. Ollie will now lead us in the first centering prayer.
So if we just want to join together in a state of mindful awareness, whatever that means to you. On this Easter morning, may we feel connected to the many Easters of the past. May we also feel connected to all the other people around the world celebrating Easter today in many various ways, with different customs and different beliefs, but all of us together celebrating the possibility of resurrection, renewal, and continuation. May we feel the power of renewal within ourselves, in our societies, and on our earth. On this day, may our hearts open and our spirits lift. On this Easter morning, may we be awakened into presence, into joy, and be awakened to all the possibilities of our lives. Peace and amen. You'll do the first reading.
Yes, I will do the first reading, which is going to come to us from the Gospel of Luke. So I'll be reading parts of Luke chapter 23. As they led Jesus away, they seized a man, Simon of Cyrene, who was coming from the country, and they laid the cross on him and made him carry it behind Jesus. Two others also, who were criminals, were led away to be put to death with him. When they came to the place that is called the Skull, they crucified Jesus there with the criminals, one on his right and one on his left. Then Jesus said, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." And they cast lots to divide his clothing. And the people stood by watching, but the leaders scoffed at him, saying, "He saved others. Let him save himself if he is the Messiah of God, his chosen one." The soldiers also mocked him, coming up and offering him sour wine and saying, "If you are the king of the Jews, save yourself." There was also an inscription over him, "This is the King of the Jews." One of the criminals who were hanged there kept deriding him and saying, "Are you not the Messiah? Save yourself and us." But the other rebuked him, saying, "Do you not fear God, since you are under the same sentence of condemnation? And we indeed have been condemned justly, for we are getting what we deserve for our deeds. But this man has done nothing wrong." Then he said, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." He replied, "Truly I tell you, today you will be with me in paradise." It was now about noon, and darkness came over the whole land, until 3 in the afternoon, while the sun's light failed, and the curtain of temple was torn in two. Then Jesus, crying with a loud voice, said, "Father, into your hands I commend my spirit." Having said this, he breathed his last. When the centurion saw what had taken place, he praised God and said, "Certainly this man was innocent." And when all the crowds who had gathered there for this spectacle saw what had taken place, they returned home beating their breasts. But all his acquaintances, including the women who had followed him from Galilee, stood at a distance watching these things. Now there was a good and righteous man named Joseph, who, though a member of the council, had not agreed to their plan and action. He came from the Jewish town of Arimathea, and he was waiting expectantly for the kingdom of God. This man went to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. Then he took it down, wrapped it in a linen cloth, and laid it in a rock-hewn tomb where no one had ever been laid. It was the day of preparation, and the Sabbath was beginning. The women who had come with him from Galilee followed, and they saw the tomb and how his body was laid. Then they returned and prepared spices and ointments. On the Sabbath they rested, according to the commandment. A reading from Luke, chapter 23.
Our second reading today comes from Thich Nhat Hanh's book, Going Home, Jesus and Buddha's Brothers. There's a filmmaker living in Sweden who wanted to come and ask me this question. If Jesus and Buddha met today, what do you think they would tell each other? I'm going to offer you my answer. Not only have they met today, but they meet yesterday, they meet last night, and they will meet tomorrow. They are always in me, and they are very peaceful and united with each other. There is no conflict at all between the Buddha and the Christ in me. They are real brothers. They are real sisters within me. This is part of the answer. A Christian is a child of Jesus, having Jesus as a parent, as an ancestor. As we are children of our ancestors, we are the continuation of our ancestors. A Christian is the continuation of Jesus Christ. He is Jesus Christ, and she is Jesus Christ. That is how I see things. This is how I see people. A Buddhist is a child of the Buddha. He is the Buddha. You are the child of your mother. You are the continuation of your mother. You are your mother, and your mother is yourself. You are the child of your father. It means that you are the continuation of your father. You are your father whether you like it or not. You are only the continuation of your mother and your father. So it is true to say that when the Buddhist meets the Christian, the Buddha is meeting Jesus. They do it every day. In Europe, in America, in Asia, Buddha and Christ are meeting each other every day. What do they tell each other? That's the end of the second reading. Now we're just going to spend a minute in guided meditation. Can I ring the bell first? So if you want to join me on this Easter Sunday, and our guided meditation is going to focus on resurrection and rebirth in ourselves. I'm going to invite you to close your eyes and notice your breath. I invite you to notice your body, to feel your feet, to feel your neck, to feel your breath. To notice the sounds around you. I think we told you we're kind of outside in a little shed, and the bird sounds are beautiful right now all around us. Much stronger than when we're normally in our home. I want you to really feel the earth below you, supporting you and holding you. And feel the sky above you. Feel your spine connecting the earth below you to the sky above you. And breathe. I want you to fill your mind's eye with spring. Maybe it's those bird sounds that are becoming stronger. But I want you to fill your mind's eye with spring and with the physical resurrection of the earth that spring brings. The trees beginning to bud with green and white and pink tips. I want you to see those in your mind's eye. The trees coming back to life after winter. I want you to imagine the flowers emerging from the soil. What was dead in the depth of winter is coming back to life with the potential for new growth. Now I want us to use the power and the example of the Earth's resurrection to feel our own personal resurrections. What do you want to resurrect in your life? Do you want to resurrect joy? A sense of peacefulness? Maybe a relationship? A parent, a spouse, a sibling, a friend, a child? Do you want to resurrect a feeling of groundedness? To resurrect connection with others after this long pandemic? A personal resurrection. I want you to breathe in and feel the power of the earth to resurrect itself. And when you breathe out, I want you to release whatever is holding you back from your own personal resurrection. So we're breathing in the power of the earth and its resurrection. And when we breathe out, we're going to feel whatever is holding us back from our own personal resurrection. We're going to feel it melt away. And we're going to give it back to the earth. Breathing in the power of the earth's resurrection. And when we breathe out, making way for our own personal renewal and resurrection. I want everybody just to do that a few times on their own, in silence or with the sounds that you hear around you. I invite you to continue this meditation, this practice this week. Maybe during your personal meditation time, but really anytime. Anytime this week you remember to remember to take a breath in mindfulness. You can feel the earth's power, the earth's resurrection power. And when you breathe out, you can feel the awakening of your own personal resurrection in and out, available to you anytime, in and out. Happy Easter. Now we have Michael return for the Dharma Talk.
Thank you, Ollie. I'm going to invite the bell to sound one more time. Can you turn that? Thank you. Mm-hmm. We're staying, as Ollie mentioned, we're staying in Struthers, Ohio, just outside of Youngstown. We're actually filming this in Poland, Ohio, the next town over. We're about a half a mile from my mom's church that I went to growing up, less than a mile from the house where I grew up, in my niece's backyard in her she shack. So thanks to Michelle and her family for letting us use this. I woke up early this morning, and it was still dark outside. And I let the dogs out and went out in the backyard, and I could see the Big Dipper and the stars. And you can see the stars a little better in the Youngstown area than you can in Columbus. There's a little bit less light pollution here. And I found myself thinking about the Catholic teacher Edward Hayes. He speaks of the solar system and the galaxy and that sort of thing, and he says if you were to reduce our solar system, with its 8 or 9 planets, down to the size of the palm of your hand, and everything was being reduced at the same rate, how big then do you think the Milky Way galaxy might be? Well, Edward Hayes, I think this is in his book A Pilgrim's Almanac, he said if we reduce our solar system down to the palm of our hand, then the Milky Way galaxy would then be reduced so that it would only be about the size of the continental United States. And I looked up online and I was wondering, well, how many stars, our sun is one star, how many stars are there in the Milky Way galaxy? And I looked online, and NASA says they don't know for sure, but the best estimates are between 100 billion and 400 billion stars in the Milky Way galaxy. And, when we start talking in those big numbers, it doesn't make too much sense to us. But just to give you a little idea, there are fewer than 8 billion humans on the planet. And so we have this estimate of between 100 and 400 billion stars, or suns, if you will, in the Milky Way galaxy. Well, that leads to the next question for me. How many galaxies? And then in the observable universe, we have estimates of from 200 billion to 2 trillion galaxies. And remember, these each, with, let's say we're an average sized galaxy. I don't know if we are, but, each of those with 100 to 400 billion stars in them. And then, you could compare the size of the sun to the Earth, and then you could compare you or me to the size of the Earth. We're kind of on the small side. And then I'm thinking about all this morning, and I look over, and sleeping on the couch across from me, I think it's, dawn's kind of coming up then. I look across from me, and there is our dog Cookie, a West Highland Terrier. And I don't know if you know these Westies, these little white dogs. And we walk the dogs almost every day, Ollie and I. And you should see Cookie walking down the street. And I'll do and he is in charge. He is clearly, he is in charge of everything. Actually, yesterday when we got to my mom's, the neighbor's Doberman came running out. And, Cookie goes right up like, don't make me kick your butt, So I was thinking that's a little bit how we are as humans, I think. We got it all figured out. We know what's going on. And so, when you start talking about things like empty tombs, that's ridiculous. Deathlessness from death. We think we got that all figured out, right? And even enlightenment, right? We scoff at such a notion, right? And that then led me to think about a story that the Dalai Lama tells about one of his Tibetan monks. And as you may or may not know, the Dalai Lama escaped from Tibet around 1959. And of course, many monks, Tibetan monks, are left behind. And one of the ones who was left behind, this monk was captured with a group of about 130. I think they were mostly monks. There might have been some lay people as well. Captured by the Chinese and put into a work camp. And the conditions were absolutely horrific. They were regularly tortured. And as I think I said, there were about 130 of them. And at the end of 18 years, only 20 were still alive. And this monk, one of the 20, came back and met the Dalai Lama and talked to him about his experience. He said, there were times when it was so cold and we were so hungry that we would have eaten one of those who had died, but their bodies were so frozen stiff and we had no access to fire or heat that we couldn't eat them. And this monk says to the Dalai Lama, he says, there were times when I was in real danger. And of course the Dalai Lama thinks that the monk is about to say that he was in real danger of losing his life. And this monk says to the Dalai Lama, there were times during those 18 years when I was in real danger of losing my compassion for the Chinese soldiers. It's almost unimaginable for most of us to imagine a human being capable of that level of compassion. And maybe a little bit of our strut goes away because maybe people can be something more than we typically imagine. And that had me thinking about enlightenment from a Tibetan perspective. And I have this wonderful book called The Tibetan Book of Living and Dying. And within this Tibetan tradition, they have this idea that sometimes an enlightened being will attain what is called the rainbow body. I don't know if that particular monk, if he's still alive or not, but I don't know if he might be a candidate for this rainbow body. And this is going to be our third reading today from the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying about the rainbow body. Through the advanced practices of Dzogchen, accomplished practitioners can bring their lives to an extraordinary and triumphant end. As they die, they enable their body to be reabsorbed back into the light essence of the elements that created it. And consequently, their material body dissolves into light and then disappears completely. This process is known as the rainbow body or body of light, because the dissolution is often accompanied by spontaneous manifestations of light and rainbows. The ancient tantras of Dzogchen and the writings of the great masters distinguish different categories of this amazing otherworldly phenomenon. For at one time, if at least not normal, it was reasonably frequent. Usually a person who knows he or she is about to attain the rainbow body will ask to be left alone and undisturbed in a room or a tent for 7 days. On the 8th day, only the hair and nails, the impurities of the body, are found. This may be very difficult for us now to believe, but the factual history of the Dzogchen lineage is full of examples of individuals who attained the rainbow body. And as Dzogchen Rinpoche often used to point out, this is not just ancient history. Of the many examples, I would like to choose one of the most recent, and one with which I have a personal connection. In 1952, there was a famous instance of the rainbow body in the east of Tibet, witnessed by many people. The man who attained it, Sonam Namgyal, was the father of my tutor and brother of Lama Tsetsen, whose death I described at the beginning of this book. He was a very simple, humble person who made his way as an itinerant stone carver, carving mantras and sacred texts. Some say he had been a hunter in his youth and had received teaching from a great master. No one really knew he was a practitioner. He was truly what is called a hidden yogin. Sometime before his death, he would be seen to go up into the mountains and just sit, silhouetted against the skyline, gazing up into space. He composed his own songs and chants and sung them instead of the traditional ones. No one had any idea what he was doing. He then fell ill, or seemed to, but became strangely, increasingly happy. When the illness got worse, his family called in masters and doctors. His son told him he should remember all the teachings he had heard, and he smiled and said, "I've forgotten them all. And anyway, there's nothing to remember. Everything is illusion, but I am confident that all is well." Just before his death at age 79, he said, "All I ask is that when I die, don't move my body for a week." When he died, his family wrapped his body and invited lamas and monks to come and practice for him. They placed the body in a small room in the house, and they could not help noticing that although he had been a tall person, they had no trouble getting it in, as if he were becoming smaller. At the same time, an extraordinary display of rainbow-colored light was seen all around the house. When they looked into the room on the 6th day, they saw that the body was getting smaller and smaller. On the 8th day after his death, the morning on which the funeral had been arranged, the undertakers arrived to collect his body. When they undid its coverings, they found nothing inside but his nails and hair. My master, Jamyang Khyentse, asked for these to be brought to him and verified that this was a case of the rainbow body. Now, we may listen to that story and question it. Throughout this book, the author Sogyal Rinpoche says, we're in a highly questioning age right now. But I invite you to just, suspend your disbelief for a moment and entertain the possibility of the rainbow body. And if that is a possibility, might that Tibetan monk, who was in prison for 18 years and never lost his compassion for the Chinese soldiers, might he be a candidate for the rainbow body? And if there was a spiritual teacher in another land, in a culture that had no connection, as the Tibetans do, to this idea of a rainbow body, and if this particular teacher had reached such a level of, let us say, enlightenment, that he would give teachings such as this: "You have heard that it hath been said, Thou shalt love thy neighbor and hate thine enemy. But I say unto you, love your enemies. Bless them that curse you. Do good for them that hate you. Pray for them that despitefully use you and persecute you, that you may be the children of your Father which is in heaven." If that same teacher, when he was being tortured, and in fact dying, could have said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they are doing." Again, we might think, can anybody do that? Who can do that? Well, if we believe the Dalai Lama, that Tibetan monk who was held for 18 years seems to have been able to do it. So maybe this Middle Eastern teacher was at that level of compassion, or that level of the view, where he could see how he was not separate from others. And what would happen if, maybe not in 7 days, but maybe in 2 or 3 days, he attained the rainbow body? There may be more than many of us can believe or really consider. But I remind you again of those billions and billions of stars, and how very small we are. Thich Nhat Hanh says one of his favorite mantras is a simple question: "Are you sure?" There's something about opening up to being not sure. Opening up to not knowing what's possible. Ollie shared with us about the resurrection of the earth that happens within us. I share a couple of these mystical thoughts on it. And there's one more thing I want to share. Today is April 4th. It's the anniversary of the death of my father. He died 24 years ago. And Ollie and I had the blessing of being there at his side as he breathed his last breath. My brother, my sister, and my mom were also there. You don't always get that, of course. It was a blessing. And my dad went into a coma the night before, on April 3rd. And the morning of April 4th, I was sitting out on the concrete step by the back door. Actually, Ollie and I were sitting there together, and kind of a beautiful day like today in Ohio, and the birds were singing. And I've shared this before in other Dharma Talk, but the singing of the birds was unlike anything I had ever heard in my life. It was like a symphony. It was like it was all choreographed, and I was just in absolute awe. And I thought maybe this is just happening within me, and I turned and I looked at Ollie, and she was experiencing the exact same thing. My dad was very fond of animals, and I don't know if this could have been a special send-off for my dad, or I don't know if this is something that happens all the time, but that particular morning, I was just so heart open that I actually had the ears to hear it. But it was something beyond what this Westie here struts about and usually experiences. And just a few weeks before this, there was a gathering at our house, or the house I grew up in, and cousins were there, my brother, my sister, and their kids, and as people were getting on their coats and leaving, my dad, I remember he was sitting at the dining room table. My mom went over and she put her hand on my dad, and she said, "Bill, look what we did." And at that point, my mom and dad had 9 grandchildren, 1 great-grandchild, and another great-grandchild on the way. It's been 24 years since my dad died. There are now not 9 grandchildren, but 12 grandchildren. Not 1 great-grandchild, but 17. I sometimes misspeak and think that my dad died 24 years ago. There's a deathlessness. Just like the deathlessness of that empty tomb. There's continuations. And it's not just for those of us who have children or descendants. There's so many other people that my dad, he touched with his life, and there's so many people that we all touch with a word, with a thought, as a teacher, as a coach. This last week, I played football in high school over 40 years ago. And this last week, it popped into my head, gosh, I wonder if the old films are available. They had black and white 16mm films of our games. And so I got it into my head, and I got on the internet, and I started searching around for our head coach. His name's Jack Geddes. And I found a Jack Geddes, age 91, living in Youngstown, Ohio. And I was able, through the internet, to find this phone number. I called. His wife answered. And I was trying to explain who I was. I said, "Oh, yeah, I went to Struthers High School. Is this the Jack Geddes who was a football coach at Struthers?" And she was confused at first. She said, "Oh, are you from the hospital?" I said, "No, I'm not from the hospital." And then she started to explain to me that her husband had recently had surgery. But this 91-year-old man was now home, and this was the Jack Geddes who had been the football coach. And she was able to put him on the phone. And I asked him if he knew anything about those old films or anything, and he didn't. And I don't think he even remembered me. I'm like, oh, I was your right offensive guard, but that's okay. And then I said to him, I gave him thanks for being our coach. And, we weren't a great team. We lost more games than we won, but we had some great moments. There was a game with the Howland Tigers where we were down by 2 touchdowns, and with 3 minutes left in the game, we scored a touchdown. We did an onside kick. We got the ball back. We went back in. We scored another touchdown, and we won the game where we scored a couple of touchdowns in the last couple of minutes. And so I said to Coach Geddes this last week, I said, Mr. Geddes, I said, there were just some great, I know we didn't always win, but we had some great games. I said, I remember that Howland game, and he says, I was just telling my wife about that game last week. This is a game from 1978, and we were both thinking about it. I'm not separate from Coach Geddes. We're not separate from all those teachers, from all those people who've touched our lives. I love the reading that Ali shared, where Thich Nhat Hanh says, Jesus and the Buddha are always in me, and they are very peaceful and united with each other. There is no conflict at all between the Buddha and the Christ in me. They are real brothers, they are real sisters within me. Whatever you think of Jesus, whatever your thoughts about empty tombs or deathlessness, about rainbow bodies or continuations, we're not separate. This whole Buddha thing didn't end 2,500 years ago. This whole Jesus thing didn't end 2,000 years ago. My dad didn't die 24 years ago. And after all the stars were gone, I went back outside. And the sun was coming up. And this old Westie who struts around was reminded of how little he knows. Reminded of how he lives on a planet. Jesus Christ is risen today. Alleluia. Our triumphant holy day. Alleluia. Who did once upon the cross Alleluia, suffer to redeem our loss. Alleluia. Happy Easter. I'll invite the bell to sound, and then Ollie will have our announcements, and we'll have our closing joys and concerns. Enjoy the sound of the bell. As Thich Nhat Hanh says, there's only one place to meet the Buddha and the Christ, in this present moment.
So, we do our services here online, either on Zoom or you can watch us on Facebook Live every other Sunday. So our next service will be in 2 weeks, April 18th, and then May 2nd will be the service after that. So you can join us either on Facebook Live, on Zoom, or you can watch them. They're archived on Facebook Live, and then we put them on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, Sacred Ground. So those are all ways you can watch them. If you want more information about us, you can go to our website, which is theholynow.org. And on that website, you can find about all the things we're doing. We have a calendar of events, just some information about ourselves, about Thich Nhat Hanh, about the 5 mindfulness trainings, and lots of other information. You also could find information about our podcasts. We do a daily musing podcast 3 times a week. And that's if you go to theholynow.org, you can find that. It is also on YouTube. It is available on video and on YouTube, and on audio on either our website or our second website, Life is Art, lifeisprayer.com, which has all our podcasts. So there's the daily podcast called Sacred Grounds Daily Musing. We also have a podcast about reading the Bible with a Buddhist lens and Mother Earth eyes. You can check out that. There are a number of episodes of that podcast there. So if you want to join us, you could contact us through our website. We can put you on our email list. And we hope to see some of you again soon. We'll hopefully be doing some things live now with the vaccine and with spring coming, that we'll be doing some things. If you live in the Central Ohio area, you can join us live, but we're also going to keep doing things online because we've met so many wonderful people around the world doing these programs online. Okay, if you have any other announcements?
Yeah, so did you say when our next service,
I did say when
April 18th is the next Sunday service, and then so I think
May 2nd.
And then May 2nd. And so I think then April 12th, if I'm right, Monday, April 12th, we'll have our next men's mindfulness group. If you'd like to join us for that, we do that on Zoom, but it's not on Facebook Live, so you'd have to sign up on Zoom. And so 5th, 12th, and then the 14th, April 14th, we should have our Groundings, which is a Dharma discussion group where we all have a chance to, we have a reading of Thich Nhat Hanh and a chance for all of us to share, and we'd welcome you to join us for that as well. Yeah. So we're going to do this together here, our closing prayer.
Are we going to do Joys and Concerns?
Oh, yeah, Joys and Concerns. Yep, thank you.
And so that actually, anyone that would like to join in and say a prayer, you may. We have some people that are on Zoom but are kind of as attendees. If you want to say something, you can put it up with the chat up. You can chat with us, and we can move you if you want to talk.
Yeah, you could say, please make me a panelist or something, and I'll share. Or you could just put it in there and we can read it. You can also share on Facebook, and we're doing this. We usually have we're in 2 separate spaces, so it's a little tricky, but we'll try to catch them if you want to share something. So
you can put a comment on Facebook, a comment on the chat, or if you're here with us, you can wave your hand and we can let you speak.
So let's just kind of enter into a space of mindfulness and prayer. I'll invite the bell to sound one more time, and then we'll have a chance for anyone to share. And also, we certainly invite you to, if you'd rather not share with the whole group, but just to share in your heart and let that reverberate out for the good of all. First, the bell. Enjoy the sound.
Okay, so I'm now connected to Facebook. So if anybody wants to comment on Facebook, I can find it, hopefully. and anyone here that wants to say a prayer, we welcome you.
If you'd like.
Yeah. I'm going to mention one, a prayer, a concern. I just looked this morning, one of my best friends from childhood, known each other since we were 5 or 6 years old. Her daughter and her went to the hospital this morning. Her daughter has a chronic illness, and so they're in the hospital a bit, but I don't think they've been in the hospital since the beginning of the pandemic. So just prayers for her and her daughter. It's a difficult Easter here, but hopefully those people at the Children's Hospital in Columbus, Ohio, take care of them and they can return back home.
Hello.
Okay, let's see. Spotlight. There you go.
So I'll offer a joy, a gratitude for today's Dharma Talk. I kind of dread Easter sometime because it's the same old, like only Jesus can do this. And putting it in that context, especially the man who spent all his time in China and the rainbow, but I loved it. It was fantastic. I'll just give a triple concern that Carol and I and all human beings learn to care better for the earth and care better for each other and awaken into mindfulness.
I'll offer a couple of prayers. We may have mentioned this fellow before, but there's a young man who died recently, father of a couple of kids. We've known him since he was at least a toddler. Since he was born. Mm-hmm. And we know the family well, his 3 sisters, and they've been connected to us all their lives, and we send our healing thoughts and prayers to them. We also know a lot of families are struggling. We know of a number of marriages that are going through really difficult times or may not make it through these times right now, and we just want to send loving kindness, compassion, healing to all those people. And I think sometimes, we have our routines at Easter and they're lovely, but it's sometimes a little easy to forget, so many people in the world who are in places that aren't safe, where they don't have enough food, where they might be in a war zone. So much suffering, and we pray for more and more kindness, compassion, and healing in our world. So. You want to offer the closing, or you want me to?
I want you to. I want you to after the closing.
All right.
I'll say one quick joy though, but just such a joy that we are here with all of you, that we're here. I'm looking out the window in this beautiful yard, hearing the birds, and that we're here again. We're here with Michael's 91-year-old mother. Last Easter we weren't here because of the pandemic, and we thought we might not spend another Easter here. She's a 91-year-old smoker. She has beaten the odds. She is such a wonderful lady, and we're here with her one more Easter. And so just so much appreciating that. And that we could be here doing this service because of Zoom and because of this, the internet that we have here that we complain about an awful lot. But we're also here together with you and with all of you, and just great appreciation that we can have both of these things this year. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I said early on, but I'll say it one more time. I mentioned my mom and dad, that when my dad passed, there were 3 kids, 9 grandkids, and 1 great-grandchild, and 1 on the way. And now there are... my sister has also passed away. She died 10 years after my dad. But there are now 12 grandkids and 17 great-grandchildren. And we're here at the home of one of those grandchildren, my niece and her family. And we're so grateful that they could let us use this space, and then I'm thinking, wow, this is not, I'm sitting here in my niece's she shack, but that's not separate from my dad either. It's kind of awesome. So we are very grateful. So
someone did tell us a joy here on Facebook.
Oh,
such a joy to be with you all from New Mexico. Thank you. So thank you to Jessica.
Wonderful, wonderful. And yeah, if you're just learning about us, please check out theholynow.org. We've been doing this since 2009 in various forms, and it is wonderful that, oh my gosh, Texas, New Mexico. Sometimes we hear from people overseas. It's there's a lot of blessings with that, right? So, and that kind of fits too in terms of the way I think about prayer or energy, that what we do here reverberates out. This coach that I hadn't talked to in 40 years, it's reverberating out, and we're still reverberating with each other. It's amazing. I can hear some kids in the neighborhood outside the little cottage we're in. Thanks for the blessings of this non-linear world, where new continuations arise, where new springtimes come to be, where new children laugh and play. And where new opportunities come for us to confront the racism, the sexism, the classism, the anger, the fear, the hatred, where we're invited into presence, into adding to the good, into healing. Help us to appreciate this day and every day. New opportunities for what is good and worthy and healing to arise in us, for the Buddha and the Christ to resurrect within us, for the laughter and play of children to reverberate around us. And for us to open our hearts, our minds, our souls to possibilities beyond our imagining. As we sit on this ball in space with this nearby star, knowing that we are a part of something very, very, very vast and marvelous. Happy Easter. Peace and amen.
Happy Easter. Enjoy your day. Oh, and another hi from Central Arkansas.
Wonderful.
Yeah, right there.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Peace to you all. We hope you can join us for the Sunday service again in 2 weeks, and in a little shorter time than that, you can see on the calendar at theholynow.org. We'll have the men's group and we'll have our discussion group if you'd like to join us for that. Happy Easter.
Happy Easter.